dad is George Stanley. Your uncle is Lynwood Stanley. Why did you move from New Jersey to Cali?
So my grandfather had moved to California, and my uncle and my father were still living in New Jersey. And so my father went out there to go to school, and then my uncle went out there to get a job. So it's the type of thing to where their parents were living apart. You know, they were staying with their mom in Jersey. My grandfather moved to California, and they came of age, and they wanted, new scenery to branch out. So California is where they went to grow up.
Yeah, that's good.
So, at what age did they start rapping?
So that is a common misconception. So my father is a DJ. Okay. So my father is a DJ, and my uncle was definitely more of a street guy. Like it said in my article, he's he was an interstate drug dealer. My father was like Dr. Dre. That's how Dr. Dre recognized his talent, because Dr. Dre was with the world class wrecking crew. And when my father moved out there, that's what he was doing, was DJing at parties in California, and building up clientele and repertoire that way. And someone told Dr. Dre about him. And so that's where the whole discrepancy about not even being able to spit the rhyme that Ice Cube had wrote. It was because, number one, they weren't rappers, first off. And then, number two, it had started off more in producing music than actually, speaking it, just like Eazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this time, they were part of HBO, Homeboys Only. How did that come about?
So going back to answer your question, so they were around between the ages of 16 and 18 when this stuff is happening. Okay, so between Jersey and California, they were between 16, 18. And so the Homeboys Only was originally more so about producing music through DJing, as far as my dad, and then dancing.
Okay.
That's just really what it was. It wasn't really, rapping until they met, Dr. Dre and Eazy E, who wanted to turn it into a rap thing. So HBO was more so just like a musical group in DJ production and dancing.
Okay, you're right. Because we thought they were just rappers coming in.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, you're right. It was a misconception that a lot of people have about them. So you kind of hinted on this already, but tell us about the song "Boys in the Hood."
Right. So "Boys in the Hood" was written by Ice Cube after Eazy E and Dr. Dre decided they wanted to form a new group, which was Ruthless Records, and they wanted to come out with their first opening act, which was supposed to be HBO. And so, of course, like I said, HBO is more so music production, DJing, and dancing. It never had anything to do with rap. So that was the first reason they didn't want to do the song. And then second of all, it was more so of a West Coast hip hop song anyway. As far as, the lingo and just the writing. And so, when they were given the song, it was just it wasn't a movie. It was just okay, we don't even know what this means. And to tell you the truth, it's just this is not really our thing. So, just staying true to who you are is something that runs strong in my family.
Yeah.
For example, a lot of people don't know, also my aunt, my great aunt Mary Stanley, and my great aunt Ann Stanley, they were big parts of the O.J. Simpson case. My great aunt, and she went into the courtroom in the O.J. Simpson case and threw a vital piece of evidence at the judge. She got banned from the courtroom, but if she hadn't thrown that at the judge, the O.J. trial wouldn't have gone away, but it would have, or it did. So it's just staying true to yourself is something that shines through when it comes to my family, in any situation, any person.
Okay, 1 second. What kind of evidence did she have?
I was going to say, and how did that come about?
It was, I I'm not sure, but they always talk about it because, like I said, my great aunt, who was my grandfather who raised me, his twin, and then her, I think, older sister. Yeah, they were just all up and through, like they knew Johnny Cochran, you know? So it's just like, I'm not sure what piece of evidence it was, but it was really, really important. So I'm gonna have to go and ask her.
Yeah, for sure.
Ask you on that. And besides that, you know, my Aunt Mary, she would definitely know, like her entire house at one point was filled with memorabilia from the trial, and everybody would come over to her house in Candace, South Carolina to hear about how they were involved in the Johnny Cochran trial. So yeah, the Stanleys were open through California in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. So did your dad and your uncle ever tell you that they regretted not doing the song, even though I know they weren't rappers, but they, you know, they did have an opportunity to make a song. I mean, Dr. Dre's not a rapper either, but he, you know, he still does, you know, perform. So
yeah, my dad said he didn't regret not doing it.
okay.
Yeah, and of course my uncle's dead. You know, like he can't speak for himself, but I know for a fact he would say that he didn't regret not doing it because, I mean, he still got his money. You know, he was like a multi-millionaire drug dealer. He was already living that life without it. So
That's good. So, okay, after that, around 1986, your dad and your uncle put music in the back burner, and you say he was a drug dealer. How big of an operation did they have?
So it spanned from Cleveland to Jersey to California.
Wow.
So
pretty big.
They're like pushers and movers.
yeah, my dad used to, like before TSA was a thing, right? My dad used to, and other people used to smuggle drugs from different states on the planes. My dad used to get on the plane, like taped with like tons of cocaine on him and stuff like that.
And back then, I mean, everybody was wearing oversized clothes anyway, so I'm sure, yeah. I mean, that was pretty easy to to confiscate something like that under your clothing. So, yeah.
And like you said, they were making drugs money. They didn't need rap music.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So it was like more so under the radar. So I think that kind of might have just given them more leverage, you know, to do what they did, like not being in the spotlight until the spotlight hit them again.
So yeah, so speaking of that, like, so why did Dr. Dre reach back out to them like 6 years later? Like,
so Dr. Dre reached back out after my grandmother was murdered.
okay.
So my grandmother, meaning my father and my uncle, their mom, she was killed in a domestic dispute. And yeah, Dr. Dre heard about it, you know? And it's just like, okay, condolences. But shoot, you know, like, let's link back up because he had just started Aftermath or whatever.
Yeah, Death Record, yeah.
You know, so it's just like, okay, well, I got a new project. And then also, like I said, my uncle and my dad weren't doing bad, you know? It's just that there was just like a lot of drama with the kids, the baby mamas, and now their mother was murdered. So he reached out and he was like, hey, you know, like, come through.
So
I got the hood on.
what happened to your grandma? Can you talk about it?
I just want to say it was domestic, you know.
Okay.
She was killed by her cousins, so like some really deep-rooted family wounds there.
Okay. And then there was also an accident about your brother. Can you tell us what happened with him?
Yeah, so when my oldest brother was 3 years old, he was being babysat by my aunt. And she had her other kids with her. They went to a park, and somehow or another he ended up unattended, and he walked into a large body of water and suffered a very extensive amount of brain damage.
Oh,
and like so it's like when they discovered what had happened, he was like floating on the water type stuff.
And how old was he?
He was 3 when that happened.
Oh.
Wow.
Sorry to hear that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he didn't pass away, but with the brain damage, you know, like he became severely mentally incapacitated, and he needed, you know, to be cared for 24/7.
Okay. So he was put like in a care home or institution of some sort?
So not initially. Like I said, like my father and my uncle were dealing with a lot of stuff with their children's mothers. My brother and then also me and my other siblings were in state custody because my parents were neglecting us. And so it was like a few times like nobody knew where my brother was, nobody knew where my mother was. I discovered all these things through a Google search. I looked up my brother's name and discovered an article dedicated to children who were in the system and had been neglected. So yeah, I didn't know all these things about my brother, but apparently he lived a very hard life after his accident, like just because of neglect. But finally that ended when my father and my uncle got their payment from Suge Knight. And my father put my brother in a home where he passed away.
Okay.
So speaking of Suge Knight, did your dad or your uncle ever tell you what happened that day at Death Row Studio?
Yes, my father told me.
Okay, what did he say?
So they were at Solar Records during the making of The Chronic, and Suge Knight had been in contact with a higher level drug dealer than he was, because you already know, like Suge also, deal and everything. So this drug dealer was in jail. There was a phone dedicated to Suge and this man's conversations, this man who was in jail. And so when my father and my uncle got to the studio, my uncle went to use the phone, and Suge Knight was like something like, "Say blood, don't be using the phone," or something like that. But it's just like in that moment, it was kind of like a perfect storm, because they were both like, two drug dealers, two macho men. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like my dad was like, my uncle was like, "Don't be coming at me like that, because I'm not from here," or something like that, like whatever. And so it was like some verbal back and forth. And then the assault started. So Suge ended up taking a gun. No, he ended up ordering everybody out of the studio, and he took the gun and he pistol whipped my father and my uncle, and he also shot at them. And so it was just like a very brutal scene, lots of blood all over. My dad said he took their IDs and he told them that he would kill everybody that they loved if they told the police about what happened, and he had them escorted downstairs. So my father said that they were in the car, and it was just like, like pride wounded, like, what are we gonna do? And so my uncle was more so the fiery one of the two, even though both of them more so fired. Because my dad is a Sagittarius, my uncle is a Leo, so they're like the fiery pair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my uncle was like, "Well, shoot, I got this gun, like we can go up in there and, we can do what it do." But then my father is the more rational thinking one. He was like, "Nah, like let's just let's bring the authorities into this." And so when they just literally just rode right around the corner, police were sitting right there, and they told them what had happened, and they was like, "Oh, Suge Knight did this?" And you already know Suge was like prime target on the police's list, because he had assaulted so many people before, but nobody would testify. So what happened is they I think they called SWAT or some high level agency. They raided the studio and they arrested everybody there, including like Snoop Dogg. And apparently nobody would talk or nobody would say what happened. But the only reason that they knew something happened is because they were cleaning up my father and my uncle's blood off the floor when the raid happened. Mm-hmm. And then when Suge shot at them, the bullet was still in the wall. So those two pieces of evidence is the reason that my father and uncle probably won the case, besides some other corruption that went on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were there for Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre was there recording. Did he try and intervene at any point in time? Like, did he try and step up?
My father said no. My father said he left them for dead.
Wow.
That's kind of sad because
It is.
you bring them. They were out doing their own thing.
Right.
You call them to come to the studio.
Right.
Now they get into a situation. You didn't even try to help them.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
It's not unheard of. Like I've had the same thing happen to me a few times. That's why it's very important to be wary about accepting invitations from people who you are not 100% sure are loyal to you, because anything can go down.
Yeah. No, you're very right.
That's crazy.
So was there any like street retaliation? I mean, I know they went to the police, but your uncle was also a big time drug dealer. So like, even though they went to the police, was there any street retaliation?
I don't think because if you go to the cop, you can't do nothing else after that, though. Yeah, that's true.
There's the streets.
You
can.
But no, like, that is one thing about my family. Like, we really do, well, my father's side of the family, I would say the Stanley side of the family, we're not naturally violent people. Like my grandfather who raised me, he's a Marine. Like his father before him, he was in the military. You know, like even though my father was a hothead and my uncle was a hothead, like we're just more so reserved Black people, is what I'm going to say. Yeah. So it's just like we can't take it there, but there's Black people who always take it there. Yeah. And then there's Black people who we're going to think before we take it there, because there might be another plan of strategy, another plan of action that might take this person down instead of direct retaliation. So that's the type of people that we are. So that being said, no, there's never no retaliation, because at the end of the day, they pinpointed their enemy, right. And they knew who he was, and they knew that their enemy had other enemies, and they used that to their advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay, now, so it goes to the court, and they end up suing Suge. How much did they get out of that?
This is very widely disputed, because officially they were awarded $1 million settlement, but they were also being paid under the table, because what happened is the police or the government, the LAPD, they had their case against Suge Knight, right? Because it's criminal at that point. So they had their case versus him, and then my father and my uncle sued him for assault. Yeah. So with that, basically, to answer your question, it was supposed to be $1 million settlement, but my mom was always laughing about the fact that my dad apparently has told her in confidence that they didn't get all the money.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's great.
I mean, that happens pretty frequently in lawsuits. You get a settlement, but you don't actually get, what the amount. You get some of it, but not all of it. So that makes sense. Yeah. So what did they do with that money?
Oh, they splurged, blew it.
Oh my God.
Now, mind you, my uncle and them already had drug money, right? So this was in addition on top of the money that they had. So it's just I don't know what city it was, because I just looked it up. But my uncle Lynwood bought this house in some area of LA, and at that point there was only it was a 2% Black area, okay, because it was $1 million homes, okay. Right. So he bought his home flat out. I think he bought it in cash. He was the only Black homeowner, one of 4 Black homeowners. So he bought himself a big house. I think he bought some other properties. He actually made investments, and then of course, living large, he bought my grandfather this big TV, gold-plated lamps, and just really expensive furniture. My dad bought a luxury sports car. I think he had an office, a beachfront office or something. They bought studio time. Apparently my dad started something illegal escort service.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But listen, we need that, because if Shannon Sharp had that, he wouldn't be in this problem.
You're right. You are so right. You are so right. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't have to go there.
No, that was great.
That was necessary.
Yeah. So after all this has happened, I'm sure that they were, I mean, even though they did report it to the cops, I'm sure they were a little embarrassed about, what went down, with Suge. Why did they sign with Death Row Records after all this?
So it just being part of the deal.
Okay.
Number one, it was a part of the $1 million deal. I want to say that the motivation for them being at the Chronic, or the making of the Chronic at Solar Records, was because they probably still had dreams, of making music and stuff like that. So besides that, just they still wanted to do it. And at that time, when they had sued, that's when, West Coast hip hop had blew up. So, I'm pretty sure they wanted to, blow up too, ride the wave. And so, yeah.
So around the lawsuit, that's when Tupac came to Death Row and he ended up passing away. To me, the night Tupac died is the night Death Row crumbled. That's how I look at it. So what happened to HBO after Tupac died?
So after Tupac died, everything at Death Row stopped abruptly. So it's just nobody was answering phones, nobody was answering questions about the way things were gonna go. Everything just stopped. So basically, Suge went to jail. I believe they completed the album. I'm not sure if they completed the album before Pac died, but I do know that the settlement happened in '94. The year that after I was born, and I think Pac died in 96 or 97.
96, yeah.
Yeah, so I know that the album was finished, but it was eventually shelved. Like I said, I'm not sure if it was before or after. It really doesn't matter, because it was going to get shelved anyway. Like the sound of the album, it was old. Basically, it didn't keep up.
That makes no sense though, because if they're recording a record with Death Row, they have all these producers. Your dad is a producer. How come the sound is that old? You know what I mean? If they were, because the whole Dre thing is the G-Funk.
Right.
So I'm sure your dad was doing the same type of music, right?
So they spent years making that album.
Oh, okay.
It was slow progress on the album. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I've talked to a few of my cousins who were present, and they said that it was a lot more sexing going on in the studio than music making.
Okay.
All right, that makes sense.
So unfortunately, they got more so caught up in the image of being rappers than actually rapping.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
And so to answer the question, they basically just continued with the background lives that was honestly just more so the focus of their lives, not the focus of, the world, because all of the stuff was happening in obscurity. But yeah, just raising kids. Basically, my uncle ended up getting shot because of a drug deal going bad. He went to collect his money and possibly take the life of someone, one of his couriers, and this person knew he was coming. So a gunfight happened in Jersey. My uncle was shot in the spine and paralyzed. At that point, his empire crumbled. So it's crazy because it's just Death Row crumbled, Suge's empire, both drug and music, crumbled, and then my uncle got shot. So they were just in the midst of having all these babies. My dad has 2 baby mamas, my mother, and then my youngest brother's mother.
Okay.
And then my uncle has he was married to a woman, and then not anymore. And then he had like kids by 2 other women, so it was just like baby mama drama. Besides that, there was also a sibling rivalry.
Okay.
So it's just like they had fell out, my father, my uncle, and my aunt. And then when my uncle got shot, his empire crumbled and like just everything really just like deteriorated between everybody. So because of my uncle's drug empire, which spanned, you know, like I said, East Coast, West Coast, and Cleveland, he had drugs in all these states, and he had people holding money for him in all these states. And what happened when he got shot is, you know, his influence died. You know, my uncle held his drug empire together through fear. And so when he got shot, everybody kind of just ran off with the money, ran off with the drugs, disappeared on him. So my uncle ended up back in California with one of his loyal friends and a girlfriend, and he was basically trapping out at the Motel 6. You know, he was still doing this thing, you know, still trying to get by, but he ended up losing everything. Like, I think the house went into foreclosure or something. Cars, lost everything. Yeah. And so, yeah, what happened is, okay, so Suge Knight violated his probation the night that he went to jail. And because of that, he was sent back to jail in 96 or 97, and he was supposed to go to jail for another 10 years. He was released early in 2001. And then basically, my uncle heard he got released, and he was trying to leave California. Because another thing that happened while Suge was locked up is that my uncle discovered that Suge had been paying the DA under the table.
Yeah.
Okay, so when this was discovered, it's just like, okay, like my uncle and my father are testifying lightly in the criminal case against Suge, the government's case against Suge, while they have a civil suit under the guidance of the DA, who was telling my uncle and my dad, hey, testify lightly. But that's just so that Suge, you know, can get a more favorable outcome. And that's because the DA, Larry Longo, had been letting Suge stay in his house in Malibu, and he had basically had worked it out to where his daughter Gina Longo could get a record deal. So yeah, with that, what she did, and she was going to be like the first white artist on Death Row Records, and she even met with my father and my uncle to be on their album. And so when my uncle discovered this, he decided to sue Suge Knight again, and so there's 2 settlements, and so the second settlement was $1 million too. So that's why when Suge got released early in 2001, my uncle was trying to leave California. Okay. What happened is he ended up apparently sampling his product because he was in such a low state in life. He was very, very bad. And so, yeah, apparently he sampled his product at one point, but since he was in a wheelchair, you know, like he was sitting all the time because of the spine injury, it ended up causing a blood clot. And my uncle ended up dying. And so my uncle died in 2001. And
so that's the same year Suge got out.
Yeah, my uncle died a month after Suge got out.
Wow. So did you? So was he really in fear of Suge retaliate against him?
Oh, 100%. Okay. 100%. I mean, because this guy, like, he had basically put him away for the latter part of the 90s, you know, and then hit him again in the pocket. So there's just like no way that he wasn't coming.
Yeah.
For.
Yeah.
So around this time, where was your dad? What was he doing?
My dad has a tendency in these stories to be here, there, and everywhere. So at this point, like, he was basically, I think he was like doing something like still running that legal brothel, partying, you know, spending the rest of his money. Yeah, I can tell you he wasn't around his kids because he was like dropping like me and my sister off at different girlfriends and stuff while he partied and did this, that, and the third. And that's where my grandfather came into the picture.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather realized that he hadn't put my sister in school during the time of the settlement. And he called him. He's like, you know, your oldest daughter is about to be 5. You know, when is she going to school? And my dad said she's not going to school this year. So my grandfather had someone in his family find out which girlfriend he was staying with, and he came in the middle of the night and he picked us up, and then he raised us until I was 18.
Okay.
So let's go back a little bit. So tell us, I mean, what you can remember from those early years of your life when your dad got custody of you when you were living with him.
So I just remember it being very chaotic. I remember moving a lot. I remember being at different women's houses. I remember sleeping on floors. I think the most vivid memories I have is of being in the studio with my other siblings and cousins. And I remember that because my dad had us, that was one of the times my dad had us in the studio the whole day, and he didn't feed us once. And he didn't feed us until we left late that night. And then my second memory is of sleeping on the floor at one of his girlfriend's house. And that was my first time watching porn.
Wow.
How old were you?
I had to be between the ages of 1 and 3.
Wow.
So wait, he was watching porn in front of you?
So it was just like, you know how you think your kids are asleep because it's nighttime. They're on the other side of the bed or on the other side of the room in the bed, and they're turned this way, and you're trying to get down with your mate.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's wild, man.
That is wild. Yeah.
So, where was your mom at this point?
So I have never been in the custody of my mother. My mother lost custody of me as soon as I was born.
So okay, I'm a social worker. So I've and I did work in child services for quite a while, but as a child growing up in that environment, and even the time that your grandfather came and got you, I mean, did you realize that your life was chaotic at that point? Had you been around other kids? You know what I mean? Like, did you know that that's not a great way to live? Or did you just kind of think that's just normal and how every other child lives?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was normal. And I grew up with severe anxiety issues. Like, I used to tap my, I don't know if you can see it, but I used to tap my leg like this, just habitually, my entire childhood. I used to always have my hands in my hair. I used to always just be showing these subtle signs of anxiety. Like my nervous system was always in this constant state of excitement and the fight or flight, which I didn't know until I left home at 18. I got into a relationship with a guy and went into another toxic environment. And then I started really digging deep down into my behaviors, like the leg tapping, like the overthinking, like the being depression prone. And what I thought was a man bringing negative energy into my life, which it was, but it wasn't the bigger part of the story. The bigger part of the story is that I had been conditioned to dysfunction, conditioned to all this trauma from a young age. And I didn't realize until I started my healing journey in the year 2016, which was, how old was I in 2016? That was the year I graduated college. I was like
22, 21.
Yeah.
Usually that's the age.
I just turned 32, so I'm starting to lose track of the years too.
I understand.
So yeah, it wasn't until I did the healing work that I realized any of this.
So do you feel any kind of way when you hear stories about like the altercation between Suge Knight and your dad and your uncle? Or, because you were so kind of separated from that life, did you not, do you not have really any feelings about that?
I definitely have feelings about it because it's just like, it was injustice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's the type of injustice that is rampant in the Black community. It's bullying. It's these unnecessary shows of force from one Black person to another. Which really stems from the generational trauma that we've been through, to where, because all of us are at the bottom, some of us feel the need to stomp on other people at the bottom so we can feel some sort of superiority, right? So the whole situation, it always makes me feel some type of way, because to me, it's like a microcosm of what's going on a wide scale, not just in the Black community, but just in the world in general, to where people who feel like they have money, people who feel like because they're connected to people at the top that they can do anything. But at the same time, it's just like the parties involved. I can't really say like I'm overly attached. I don't have a great relationship with my father. When it comes to my uncle, I still have a child's perspective on him because I only knew him when he was a child. But growing older, I could definitely say that I don't think that I would. Well, I don't know, because girls are different towards their uncles than they are towards their fathers, right? So my uncle was always nice to me. We probably still would have had a great relationship, but the fact that he was a drug dealer, that would have been like a deal breaker for me. Like if he was still alive and that I would have grown up, I would have had to eventually say I don't really agree with him in his life choices. Yeah. But just all in all, I think it was an unfortunate situation, but it was definitely a fated situation, a situation that came about to really trigger other situations that happened, in all those situations that happened. For example, after my uncle died, the year after my uncle died, my brother died in the home. Okay. And I had just met him for the first time. I had never met my brother, and we went to the home to see him. 8 months later, he was gone. So it's just like other stuff like that. Like that goes back to my dad, and like how I don't really agree with him, because it's just like you just like left him there. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, when I think about the stuff that Suge Knight did to my father, my uncle, and then I think about things that my father, how he has hurt me, a lot of times it kind of just makes it even out, to where it's just like, oh, I'm not gonna be like, fuck you, Suge, I hate you, you're not, at the same time, like it's really none of my business, is what I said, but it's intriguing because it had to do with my origin story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with going through all of this, what have you been doing to overcome those feelings, those setbacks, those trauma?
So like I mentioned before, I was on my 18th birthday, I left home after a family dispute, and I ended up living with my first love, my boyfriend from high school. Okay. And he was a very toxic person, and his family were very toxic people. But it was more so, I think, a destined situation, because we definitely mirrored each other, and that we both had toxic families. It's just that he was not willing to do the work to overcome his conditioning, and I was. So when I was with him, and I ended up having a spiritual awakening when I was 21, and I ended up discovering, the study of spirituality, the study of the soul, and I came across, like oracle cards. That was my first time coming across oracle cards. I started realizing there's more. I was in college at the time. I went to the bottom level of the Thomas Cooper Library at the University of South Carolina, and there's a whole big section on metaphysics and on spirituality. Okay. And that's where I spent the rest of my college career was on that bottom floor of the library. And so in that, I started, that's how I started the study into my roots, the study into my father's story, into my uncle's story, because I was just like, really like, who am I? So when I was in college and going through this toxic relationship, that triggered me to the releasing of the movie Straight Outta Compton. That triggered me into this journey of self-discovery. And after the journey of discovering, you know, my origin story, then I went further to, okay, what's the story behind humanity? What's the story behind the universe? You know, religion, God, spirituality. That's how I became someone who is more so spiritual than religious. And I started looking for numbers more, and I started looking at psychic readings on Instagram. And those psychic readings on Instagram is what changed my life, because they were really speaking to me at a time to where I was always into domestic incidences where my ex's family got involved in our stuff, or the police would get involved. It was just like constant drama. And so the cards would call everything that was happening. And one time I got into a domestic dispute and I ended up at a homeless shelter because my ex's family didn't want me around anymore. And so the morning after I got out of the homeless shelter, I went and I sat at a McDonald's, and this homeless man saw me, and he had been at the shelter too. And he was trying to talk to me, and I tried to just like brush him off, like have an attitude, but he wouldn't leave. And so I just wrote down, I started crying in front of him, and he was like, you know, you're going through a lot, and I can tell. And he pulled out this really nice phone. I don't know how this homeless man had such a nice phone. This man had a nice ass phone. He was like, I want you to pull some cards from this phone. This man had a digital deck of tarot cards on his phone.
Wow.
And he had me select tarot cards, and that was my first introduction. That was my first and only reading to this day that I've had someone else do. And he told me exactly what was going on in my life. He was like, you're surrounded by many different groups of people who are bullying you, who are trying to dim your light, and who are going to walk away like nothing ever happened after they break you. And he says, you have gifts in you. You have a book that you need to write. Like, you have writing talent. You need to get away from these people so you can get into your gifts and talents. And so basically what this happened in, that was 2017 that happened. I went through more BS with a toxic relationship for 3 years, and pandemic came. At the time pandemic came, I had left the relationship, was working at a Walmart in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be more to this. I'm around here struggling in South Carolina. I might as well just find another lifestyle to struggle in, or another state to struggle in. Mm-hmm. So at that point, we got our stimulus checks. And I was like, I want to go back home. Like, I don't like it on the East Coast. Like, I've never gotten along with people here. My relationship with this country man is over. So I took my stimulus checks and I moved to Las Vegas for a year, where I relaunched my blog, where I wrote the article that you guys read. Mm-hmm. And that is was the start of my healing. 6 months later, I discovered that I could read regular playing cards. And I started doing readings for myself and my family and my coworkers. And that has led me to where we are right now. So I'm a psychic reader for 5 years now. If you look on my Instagram, I have testimonials.
I saw that.
I have clients from all over the world. I've talked to people all over the world. I recently connected with an award-winning film director, and we have been working together. And she has actually been inspired by our meeting to create a new TikTok series called Red Flags. So you guys want to stay tuned for Red Flags.
I will.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm going to be a part of that project. So I'm just out here spreading my healing out to people after 5 years of going through this deep journey. You know, I went to Las Vegas for a year. I moved back to South Carolina, and I've been traveling the East Coast ever since 2022.
And you wrote a book, right?
I wrote a book. So I started writing Saturn's Ascendant, which is published on Amazon. In 2016, I started writing that book in 2016 is because my only paternal aunt, her name is Evelle, she passed away 3 days after I graduated from college in December of 2015. And that was a very, very trying time in my life because even though my mother had sisters, wasn't raised on the East Coast, wasn't raised around them, and to tell you the truth, they're really not likable people.
Yeah.
This is like the only aunt that I have known, you know, like in my father's only sister. So when she passed away, it was very, very painful for me, and I was looking for an outlet. And so I had just started, like, one way that I get over trauma is researching someone else who has been through the same type of trauma. So when I was going through all that hurt, you know, it hurt a lot more because she died right before Christmas. So I ended up looking at Christmas tragedies, and I came across the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. And I remembered it happening, you know, when I was younger during that time, 2004, 2005, when I was in school, because we had seen the event on Channel 1 News. However, I basically just was reintroduced to it after all that trauma I went through, and after her death. And so I decided to create a story based around that because it is the third deadliest natural disaster that happened during our time. And it's a tragedy that will probably echo in people's hearts for many generations because entire families were lost.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah.
So, okay, when did you move to South Carolina and why did you move there?
So my grandfather moved our family to South Carolina during the year 2004. And we moved to South Carolina because of all the tragic events that happened that I just discussed.
In LA, okay.
So in addition to my uncle dying and my brother dying, my grandfather's parents passed away during the time period. So
you've been through a lot, man. You've been through a lot.
Yes, and my family has been through a lot. And it's crazy because my first time going to South Carolina was for I think it was my great grandmother's funeral because they died within a year of each other. My great grandmother and my great grandfather. So that's the first time we flew to South Carolina, and it's crazy because there's like these pictures of my uncle in South Carolina and all of us, you know, together, and it's like literally right after that was his funeral. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's just like my grandfather, like he had just been through so much. He had lost his parents, he had lost a son, and he had lost his grandson. So it was just like, it's time for something new. You know, like I gotta go. So my grandfather's twin, Mary, who I was talking to you guys about her earlier, she and my aunt, his sisters were big parts of the O.J. Simpson case. Mm-hmm. She had her family out there too. So what happened is me and my sister and my grandfather, we helped move their family to South Carolina. So what we did is we drove to Southern California, got a U-Haul, and drove the bottom half of the United States.
Wow.
To move them to South Carolina. And then we came back, and then we made the same trip the year later. But we were originally supposed to move here to Florida, where I'm at right now. Okay. Because my grandfather's father owned a house in it's either Riviera or West Palm Beach. But yeah, we were supposed to move to that house, but there ended up being sibling rivalry with my grandfather and another one of his sisters, because my grandfather has 12 siblings.
Wow. Big family.
Yeah.
Big family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ended up being drama, and that's how we ended up in South Carolina.
So, are you keeping up with your mom and your dad and your siblings?
No, okay. No. I recently decided to go on a journey of estrangement. permanently, and it's after many periods of estrangement. Because I truly believe that my first relationship came into my life to teach me how to let go of toxic relationships. And when it comes to like my parents, it's like at some point, like you have to realize that people are who they are. And it's like once you get to be an adult and you start, you know, pinpointing people's behaviors and you realize, hey, this person really just don't care, you know, at that point, there's no reason to hold on to the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with all of my siblings, with my cousins, not all of them. Because I would say like I'm on okay terms with a few of my older cousins and a few of my cousins who are more so in my age. But besides my grandfather, who I really don't feel like I can ever not have a relationship with him, despite the fact that I do have a lot of strong feelings towards him. I don't feel like I can not have a relationship with him because he raised me, you know, and even
and too, like he kind of saved you because he's the one that's come get you when your dad wasn't doing the best or your mom wasn't doing the best. He's the one that got you to school, your sister to school. So I mean, yeah, we have shortcomings. At the same time, he has good qualities. If it wasn't for him, you probably wouldn't be here right now. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, 100%. I would have lived a horror story, you know, if it wasn't for him. So that's why, despite like a lot of the stuff because even with that being said, like you still have a duty to do right by people. And I don't feel like my grandfather has done right by me in every situation. But at the end of the day, people aren't perfect. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact I am everything I am because of him. Mm-hmm. So besides my grandfather, who I check in with every month, and my grandfather's a good dude. Like if I need financial assistance, I still get an allowance every month. You already know I'm calling. I call for my allowance today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now that you're in a healthier space, you're doing a lot better. Does that allow you to choose better partners? Because before, when you were going through all this trauma, the only thing you can see is other toxic people. Now, are you allowing yourself to date people who's less traumatic?
No.
No?
I've been trying, but okay, so here's the thing. I refuse to allow myself to seriously date because the last relationship was so bad that I realized I needed to focus on my money. So right now and for the past 5 years, it has not been anything serious with me and anyone. Like I've had, you know, like situationships. Like for example, I've had this guy to where I've been in and out of his house for the past 3 years. And I just stopped doing that, stopped popping up on him. But even while I was talking to him, I was talking to other people. I had hookups and stuff like that. But I will definitely say it's definitely been with people who are not on my level, out of my caliber, and just more lessons to be learned.
Okay.
But this year, I will say this year I decided to step out of that cycle. Like, for example, the guy, I'm not in and out of his house anymore. I haven't talked to him since last year. Usually during the wintertime, I would make time for romance and respond to my DMs and, you know, just have someone to talk to. But this winter is more so going to be more about me and God so that I can attract that relationship that I want, because to tell the truth, I don't put myself in spaces to where I'm equally yoked with men. You know what I'm saying? Like I really, really don't. So it's just like I'm gonna have to do a rebrand so I can, you know, start going to business conferences and places where there are men who are educated,
yes,
and to see what's inside of me instead of what's outside.
Yeah, no, do that. But let me ask you a question, right? Do women not, I'm sorry, that's a question. No, do women who don't want anything serious try only date guys that's less than them because that way they can find a way to move away from them quicker?
You are asking the wrong person if you're asking me. Go ahead and ask her. Because I was single for 11 years and then I found you. So, like, no, I don't know. I am not the right
No,
person.
because okay. Let me ask you. Let me ask you the same question, right? No, okay. Because you say you're dating those guys that are lesser than you. Are you only looking at these guys because you know it's for like a short-term period?
At the time, and loneliness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
makes sense.
because I feel like if she gets somebody on her level, it would be hard for her to toss back to the water. You know what I mean? To the wild.
Listen, I went to New York on my 30th birthday. Okay. I'm all about my business, so I'm a psychic street performer. That's how I got my start. Okay, so I have a pop-up shop, camping chairs, tables, and I got my cards. Went to New York City for my 30th birthday to Times Square to perform. I got done with my performance like 10 o'clock at night, went to get some pizza. I was sitting on the side of the road eating it, and a woman walks up to me. She's like, "Hey, I see that you're a psychic. I'm a psychic too." So we end up going to another pizza shop, and we're in that pizza shop for like 2 hours exchanging readings. And she tells me, and she's like, "Yeah, so your next partner is a white man." I was like, you know what? I can see that because I just haven't had a lot of peace when it comes to dating, men of my ethnicity. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I've never dated an educated Black man of my ethnicity. Like, never. You feel me? So it's just like with this guy I was talking to for 3 years and my ex, they were restaurant managers. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, to tell you the truth, white men are more intrigued by my talents than Black men are. Like if it's like me on my
Cause we're scared, girl. Listen, we're scared. Okay, no. Listen, no. Okay, if I'm talking to you, I find out you're psychic. I'm scared of you. Listen, I don't know.
It gotta be what it is.
That's funny. I never thought about it like that. But yeah, maybe. Yeah. You're probably right.
Black men say to me, that's what Black men say. Like, they'll go like, "I want to do it. I'm scared." A white man will walk right up, just sit right there and put $30 in my hand. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, like I'm pretty in the face too. So it's just like,
yeah.
But like white men will stop and be like, "I love that business setup. I love that tent." Because if you look at my Instagram, you'll see me setting up my setup. I kind of put a little tip out. You feel me? So it's just like when the psychic told me that, I was like, you know what? I think that's just God telling me I need to date outside of my comfort zone.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, look at me and her, but you have to open yourself to love. You know what I mean?
Right.
It may not be a Black person. It might be Hispanic, Asian, white. It might be. So open yourself and get the best person you can get.
Right.
Forget about their race and religion. Get the best person for you.
Right.
That's what I can tell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Yeah. But I also think that doing the work yourself, doing the work on yourself, like I said, it was 11 years for me. I had to get rid of my toxicities and my trauma and stuff too. So, before I was able to date someone that was appropriate for me as well. You know what I mean? That on that level. So I applaud you for doing the work. I mean, I really do, because it makes your life so much better to find a partner who is, who meets you in every place that you need them to meet you. So yeah. So well, I mean. So is there anything that you want people to know about your family and their contribution to hip hop or the West Coast scene, or, anything that, you really just want people to know about the Stanley family or, your roots?
Not beyond anything that I told you. And besides that, like I said, my family, like from the O.J. Simpson trial to, Suge Knight, we were making some ripples during the 90s. And so as far as when it comes to my family, that's all that I really have to say, because now is my time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to build a brand for myself. Like, I want people to focus on what I have going on, because even though the story was really intriguing, I can't say that what was going on was like benefiting mankind and benefiting humanity in the way that I do. Like, the work that I do, you know, helping people understand themselves spiritually and emotionally, it's an extension of the trauma that I went through because of the family. So I'm at the point in my life where I'm putting the past in the past, and I only look back on it to pull knowledge to inspire others and to keep myself going.
I think that's great.
Yeah, that's great.
I think, I mean, is there anything else that you want to add about what you have going on right now?
Besides, everybody should stay tuned for Red Flags. No, I'm writing a second book.
Okay.
It's the sequel to Saturn's Ascendant, and that's coming out. I'm going to be doing more work on my blog. I'm going to be doing more traveling and just showing who I am, and just keeping humanity inspired, and trying to pick up people who need help and who are seeking that help.
You're doing amazing. I'm proud of you. Because you came a long way, man. You were a nice young lady with your head on your shoulder. You're doing amazing. You're doing fantastic.
Yeah. You are. You're doing great. So keep it up. Maybe we can check in with you in the future, see how things are going.
We will, because I want to, this is more about her family.
Right.
Next time I want to have her in to talk about
her.
Like what she, you know what I mean? Because